Hello, it's Mrs. Wurman, your librarian. I'm here because if we were in the school building, you would notice in the library that there are a lot of books out on the bookshelves displayed have a lot of pictures of women of different periods in time and all kinds of things about women, because March is Women's History Month. So since we're not in the building and you can't look at all of those books yourself, I thought I would bring you some clips from a few stories of famous women who did amazing and interesting things with their lives. A few of these clips are going to come from a book I have called Headstrong, 52 Women Who Changed Science and the World by Rachel Swaby. And I thought I would start off with, in the mathematics department, Ada Lovelace. She was born in 1815 and she died in 1852. She is British. So let me read what Rachel Swaby has written about her, because I think it's a pretty good summary of why she's an amazing woman. Ada Lovelace, born Ada Augusta Byron, was given a famous name before she made her own. Her father was Lord Byron, the bad boy of English romantic poetry, whose epic mood swings could be topped only by his string of scandalous affairs. Little Ada's mother had had enough. 1 month after the girl was born, she took the baby and quit the marriage. Lord Byron left England and never returned. However brief their time in each other's company, Lord Byron was ever present in Lovelace's upbringing as a model of what not to be. Worried that Ada might lean toward the lyrical, her mother pushed a practical curriculum of grammar, arithmetic, and spelling on the child. When Lovelace became sick with the measles, she was bedridden, only permitted to rise to a sitting position 30 minutes a day. Any impulsive behavior was systematically ironed out. It may have been a strict upbringing, but Lovelace's mother did provide her daughter with a solid education, one that would pay off when Lovelace was introduced to mathematician Charles Babbage. The meeting occurred in the middle of her season in London, that time when noble women of a certain age were paraded around to attract potential suitors. Babbage was 41 when he made Lovelace's acquaintance in 1833. They hit it off, and then he extended the same offer to her that he had to so many. Come by to see my difference engine. Babbage's difference engine was a 2-ton, hand-cranked calculator with 4,000 separate parts, designed to expedite time-consuming mathematical tasks. Lovelace was immediately drawn to the machine and its creator. She would find a way to work with Babbage. She would. Her first attempt was in the context of education. Lovelace wanted tutoring in math, and in 1839 she asked Babbage to take her on as his student. The two corresponded, but Babbage didn't bite. He was too busy with his own projects. He was, after all, dreaming up machines capable of streamlining industry, automating manual processes, and freeing up workers tied to mindless tasks. Lovelace's mother may have tried to purge her of her father's influence, but as she reached adulthood, her Byron side started to emerge. Lovelace experienced stretches of depression and then fits of elation. She would fly between frenzied hours of harp practice to the concentrated study of biquadratic equations. Over time, she shook off the behavioral constraints imposed by her mother and gave herself over to whatever pleased her. All the while, she produced a steady stream of letters. A playfulness emerged. To Babbage, she signed her letters, Your Fairy. Meanwhile, Babbage began spreading the word of his analytical engine, another project of his, a programmable beast of a machine, rigged with thousands of stacked and rotating cogwheels. It was just theoretical, but the plans for it were to far exceed the capabilities of any existing calculators, including Babbage's own difference engine. In a series of lectures delivered to an audience of prominent philosophers and scientists in Turin, Italy, Babbage unveiled his visionary idea. He convinced an Italian engineer in attendance to document the talks. In 1842, the resulting article came out in a Swiss journal published in French. A decade since their first meeting, Lovelace remained a believer in Babbage's ideas. With this Swiss publication, she saw her opening to offer support. Babbage's analytical engine deserved a massive audience, and Lovelace knew she could get it in front of more eyeballs by translating the article into English. The next step was her most significant. She took the base text from the article, some 8,000 words, and annotated it, gracefully comparing the analytical engine to its antecedents and explaining its place in the future. If other machines could calculate, reflecting the intelligence of their owners, the analytical engine would amplify its owner's knowledge, able to store data and programs that could process it. Lovelace pointed out that getting the most out of the analytical engine meant designing instructions tailored to the owner's interests. Programming the thing would go a long way. She also saw the possibility for it to process more than numbers, suggesting, quote, the engine might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity or extent, end quote. Reining in easily excitable imaginations, Lovelace also explained the engine's limitations. Quote, it can follow analysis, but it has no power of anticipating any analytical relations or truths, end quote. She also illustrated its strengths. Quote, the analytical engine weaves algebraical patterns just as the jacquard loom weaves flowers and leaves, end quote. The most extraordinary of her annotations was Lovelace's so-called Note G. In it, she explained how a punch card-based algorithm could return a scrolling sequence of special rational numbers called Bernoulli numbers. Lovelace's explanation of how to tell the machine to return Bernoulli numbers is considered the world's first computer program. What began as a simple translation, as one Babbage scholar points out, became, quote, the most important paper in the history of digital computing before modern times, end quote. Babbage corresponded with Lovelace throughout the annotation process. Lovelace sent Babbage her commentary for feedback, and where she needed help and clarification, he offered it. Scholars differ on the degree of influence they believe Babbage had on Lovelace's notes. Some believe that his mind was behind her words. Others, like journalist Sue Charman Anderson, call her, quote, not the first woman computer programmer, the first person, end quote. Lovelace guarded her work, and sometimes fiercely. To one of Babbage's edits, she replied firmly, quote, I am much annoyed at your having altered my note. I cannot endure another person to meddle with my sentences, end quote. She also possessed a strong confidence in the range of her own abilities. In one letter, she confided, quote, that brain of mine is something more than merely mortal. Before 10 years are out, the devil's in it if I haven't sucked out some of the lifeblood from the mysteries of the universe in a way that no purely mortal lips or brains could do, end quote. For what it's worth, Babbage himself was effusive about her contributions. Quote, all this was impossible for you to know by intuition, and the more I read your notes, the more surprised I am at them and regret not having earlier explored so rich a vein of the noblest metal, end quote. The Department of Defense named a computer language after her. Ada Lovelace Day celebrates the extraordinary achievements of women in science, technology, engineering, and math. The Ada Lovelace Editathon is an annual event aimed at beefing up online entries for women in science whose accomplishments are unsung or misattributed. When her name is mentioned today, it's more than a tip of a hat. It's a call to arms. That's the end of the entry about Ada Lovelace. I hope you enjoyed it. She really is an amazing woman for her time in the 1830s. Being able to engage in this kind of thinking at all is really extraordinary. And the fact that she really did invent the first computer program is something that has kind of fallen by the wayside historically. And I'm glad that we're refinding her and discovering and celebrating her. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll do another one of these probably tomorrow for your enjoyment of additional stories from Women's History Month. Have a great day. Goodbye.